Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're going to get to the bottom of something that affects every single one of us. That powerful, almost invisible line connecting the global price of oil to the prices we pay for, well, pretty much everything right here in India. So let's dive in.
It's a question that can really make you scratch your head. How on earth can a conflict happening on the other side of the planet make your weekly grocery bill go up? It seems disconnected, right? Well, today, we're going to solve that puzzle. And the answer shows just how tangled up our world economy really is.
Okay, but before we start connecting all those dots, we've got to get on the same page about the main character in our story, inflation. Once we really get what this is, I promise, the rest of the puzzle will start to click into place.
So, what is it? Put simply, inflation just means your money doesn't stretch as far as it used to. It's that feeling you get when you realize the same 100-rupee note buys a little less this year than it did last year. And this isn't just about petrol prices going up, it's a slow, steady rise in the cost of living across the board.
So, if prices are always changing, how do we actually measure this? Well, in India, economists use two main tools to keep track of it all: the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, and the Wholesale Price Index, the WPI. Let's break down what they are and which one matters more to you.
So, on one hand, you've got the WPI. Think of this as the price at the factory gate, what businesses pay for goods in bulk. But the one that really hits home for us is the CPI. Why? Because the CPI measures the prices you and I actually pay at the checkout counter. It includes not just goods, but services too, like rent and healthcare. At the end of the day, the CPI is the truest reflection of our day-to-day cost of living. Now, this formula might look a little intimidating, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. It's just a way of comparing the price of a standard basket of goods and services today to what that same basket cost in the past. That final percentage? That's the inflation rate you hear about on the news.
All right, now that we've got a handle on inflation, let's get to the real heart of our story. Why is India's economy, and by extension, your wallet, so incredibly sensitive to every little ripple in the global oil market?
The answer really boils down to this one absolutely staggering number. India imports more than 80% of the crude oil it needs. Think about that. It means for every 5 barrels of oil we use, 4 of them come from somewhere else. This massive dependence makes our entire economy vulnerable to price shocks that we have almost no control over.
And you can see that vulnerability right here on this graph. The blue line is the price of crude oil. Look at how it jumps up and down. The orange line is our inflation rate, the CPI. Now, it's not a perfect match, of course, but look closely. See those periods when oil prices spiked, like around 2011 and again in 2022? They're often followed by a noticeable rise in inflation. The link is right there, clear as day.
And hey, you don't have to just take my word for it or squint at a graph. The data backs it up. Statistical analysis shows a correlation of 0.53. Now, in the world of statistics, that's a really strong positive link. It basically means that more often than not, when global oil prices go up, India's inflation rate tends to follow suit.
Okay, so we know there's a link, but how does it actually work? I mean, how does the price of a barrel of oil in, say, Saudi Arabia physically make the vegetables in your local market more expensive? Let's get into the mechanics.
So economists basically talk about two main kinds of inflation. First, you've got cost-push inflation. The easiest way to think about this is it just costs more to make and move stuff. Then you have demand-pull inflation, which you can remember as too much money chasing too few goods.
These graphs just show what those ideas look like. With cost push, a key ingredient like oil gets more expensive. That makes it harder for everyone to produce things, so the overall supply in the economy shrinks, and that pushes prices up. With demand pull, there's just more money floating around, so demand goes way up and pulls the prices up with it. Our oil story? It's almost entirely a story of cost push inflation.
And here is a perfect, real-world example of that chain reaction. Crude oil is a critical component in making fertilizer. So when oil prices exploded in 2022, fertilizer prices shot up too. Farmers had to pay a lot more to grow their crops, and guess what? That extra cost gets passed right down the line, leading directly to higher prices for essentials like wheat and rice. It's a direct hit to our food bills.
You know, this isn't just a textbook theory. It's a painful lesson we've learned from history time and time again. Let's look at two major events that show just how badly an oil shock can rattle the Indian economy. First, let's go back to the 1990 Gulf War. In August, Iraq invades Kuwait. A few months later, the UN slaps an embargo on their oil, and just like that, nearly a tenth of the world's entire oil supply vanished from the market. The result was pure panic, and oil prices more than doubled in a matter of months.
For India, the fallout was catastrophic. The country's foreign currency savings, its safety net, basically evaporated. We were down to less than $1 billion. Inflation soared to a brutal 13%. This wasn't just a rough patch, it was a full-blown economic crisis that forced the government into massive, historic reforms in 1991.
Now, let's fast forward 3 decades to 2022. The war in Ukraine sets off another global energy bomb. With sanctions on Russia, a huge oil producer, prices went on another wild ride, nearly doubling from about $70 a barrel to a staggering $130.
And what happened in India? Well, it was like history rhyming. Inflation shot up to 7.8%, way past what the RBI considers healthy. The rupee took a beating, weakening to a record low. This was partly due to the high oil import bill, but also because rising interest rates in the U.S. were pulling money out of markets like ours. As a response, India made a calculated move. It started buying discounted Russian oil to try and ease some of that economic pain.
So it's pretty clear we have this vulnerability. The big question is, what can anyone actually do about it? How do you fight back against inflation that's basically being imported from overseas? Let's take a look at the options.
Well, you've got 2 kinds of tools in the toolbox. The short-term fixes are kind of like economic first aid. You can release emergency oil reserves, you can cut fuel taxes to give people a break at the pump, or the central bank can raise interest rates to cool things down. These things can definitely help in a pinch, but they're band-aids. They don't fix the underlying problem.
For that, you need a long-term vision, and it really comes down to 3 big things. 1. Diversify our energy sources like crazy. That means going all in on solar, wind, and nuclear. 2. Boost our own domestic production to cut down on that 80% import habit. And 3. Innovate. We need to be supporting the next generation of technologies, like green hydrogen. This is the only real path to building a truly resilient future.
Which really leaves us with this final thought. That link between a barrel of oil and the price of your groceries is a powerful daily reminder of just how interconnected our world is. But as the global energy map gets redrawn before our very eyes, the real challenge isn't just about being resilient, it's about becoming independent. The goal isn't just to survive the next storm, but to build an economy that's strong enough to chart its own course no matter which way the global winds are blowing.